The coach walked into practice and said, "Someone here drugged the entire team." Coach Brennan's voice cracked when he said it. Not his usual commanding tone that could silence 40 teenage boys mid-argument. This was different, raw, scared. He stood at the entrance to the wrestling room holding a folder in his shaking hands, and every single one of us stopped what we were doing. The room went completely silent except for the sound of someone's water bottle hitting the mat. I was mid-stretch with my practice partner Dominic, and we both froze in place. Coach Brennan's face was flushed red, sweating, and his eyes were darting around the room like he was looking for someone specific. "Last Friday's tournament," he continued, voice getting louder. "Every single wrestler who competed tested positive for a banned substance. 32 athletes, 32 positive tests. The State Athletic Association just informed me. We're disqualified from the tournament. Our championship is being stripped. And someone in this room is responsible." The words hung in the air for a moment before chaos erupted. Everyone started talking at once, shouting denials, asking questions. I looked at Dominic and saw his face had gone completely white, sheet white, paper white. His hands were trembling. We'd been best friends since middle school, wrestling partners for 3 years. I knew every expression he made, every nervous habit. And right now, he looked guilty. I grabbed his arm and whispered, "What's going on?" Dominic wouldn't look at me. He stared at the mat, jaw clenched, breathing too fast. Around us, the team was in uproar. Our captain, Jeremy Walsh, was standing up demanding to know what substance they'd supposedly tested positive for. Other guys were yelling that it was impossible, that the tests were wrong, that someone must have contaminated the samples. Coach Brennan held up his hand for silence, but nobody was listening. He shouted, "Adderall! You all tested positive for Adderall!" That brought another wave of confusion. Half the team didn't even know what Adderall was. Coach Brennan continued, "It's a prescription stimulant, banned by the Athletic Association. It increases focus, reduces fatigue, gives athletes an unfair advantage. And somehow, every single one of you who competed Friday had significant levels in your system." I processed this information slowly. Friday's tournament had been the state semifinals. We dominated every match, crushed teams that should have been competitive. I'd felt amazing during my matches, sharper than usual, faster, like I could anticipate every move my opponents made before they did it. I'd attributed it to good training, adrenaline, being in the zone. But now Coach Brennan was saying I'd been drugged. "I didn't take anything," someone shouted. "None of us did." Other voices joined in agreement. Coach Brennan's expression shifted from angry to something worse, something sadder. "I know," he said quietly. "I know. None of you knowingly took a banned substance, which means someone gave it to you without your knowledge. Someone deliberately drugged this team, and I need to know who." The room went silent again. The implication sank in slowly. Someone had intentionally drugged us. Someone on the team or connected to it had sabotaged our entire championship run. This wasn't a mistake or contamination. This was calculated, malicious. I looked around at my teammates, trying to imagine who could have done something this. These were guys I'd trained with for years, sweated with, bled with. We were brothers. The idea that one of them could betray all of us was incomprehensible. Coach Brennan opened his folder and pulled out a stack of papers. "The Athletic Association is launching a full investigation. They're sending officials tomorrow to interview every member of this team, every coach, every staff member. They're reviewing all our records, our medical files, our supplement logs. If anyone knows anything at all, you need to come forward right now before this gets worse." Nobody moved. Coach Brennan waited for what felt like an eternity, scanning the room, making eye contact with each of us. When he got to Dominic, I saw something pass between them. Just a fraction of a second, but Coach Brennan's eyes narrowed slightly, and Dominic looked away too quickly. My stomach dropped. No. There was no way Dominic was involved in this. He was my best friend. He was a good person, honest, ethical. He'd never cheat, never hurt his teammates. But then why did he look so terrified? Coach Brennan finally spoke again. "Practice is canceled. Go home. Don't discuss this with anyone outside the team. Don't post about it on social media. Don't talk to reporters if they contact you. This is an active investigation now. You're all dismissed." We filed out of the wrestling room in stunned silence. Usually after practice, we'd joke around in the locker room, blast music, mess with each other. Tonight, nobody said a word. Everyone just grabbed their bags and left as fast as possible. I deliberately took my time, waiting until most of the team had cleared out. Dominic was doing the same thing, moving slowly, checking his phone, clearly avoiding leaving at the same time as everyone else. When it was just the two of us left, I walked over to his locker. "We need to talk," I said quietly. Dominic didn't look up from his phone. "About what?" His voice was too casual, forced. "About why you looked guilty the second Coach Brennan walked in. About why you're shaking. About what the hell is going on." He finally met my eyes. "I don't know what you're talking about, Nathan." But his voice cracked on my name. I'd known Dominic Carter since we were 12 years old. We'd gone through everything together. Failed tests, first girlfriends, family problems, injuries, losses, victories. I could read him better than anyone. And right now, he was lying to me. "Don't do this," I said. "Don't lie to me. If you know something about what happened, you need to tell me right now before this gets out of control." Dominic's jaw tightened. He shoved his phone in his pocket and turned to face me fully. "I can't talk about this here." That was as good as a confession. My chest tightened. "You know who drugged us." It wasn't a question. Dominic looked around nervously, checking to make sure we were alone. Then he grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the far corner of the locker room, away from the door. His voice came out in a harsh whisper. "It wasn't supposed to happen this way." My blood ran cold. What wasn't supposed to happen this way? Dominic ran his hand through his hair, a nervous habit he'd had since childhood. "The testing. They weren't supposed to test us. They only test at the state finals, not the semifinals. Nobody expected them to do random testing at semis." I took a step back from him. "You drugged the team." He shook his head violently. "No, I didn't drug anyone. I gave people something, a supplement. I told them it was a new legal performance enhancer, all natural, would help with focus and energy. Everyone took it voluntarily." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. "Dominic, what the hell? You don't understand." His voice was getting desperate now. "You don't know what it's like. You're naturally good at this. You've always been good. You get wins without even trying. But I've been wrestling for 6 years and I've never made it past regionals. I'm a senior. This was my last chance. I needed something to give me an edge." I stared at my best friend and realized I didn't recognize him. "So you drugged the entire team because you wanted to win?" Dominic's face flushed red. "I didn't think of it as drugging. It's a prescription medication. Millions of people take it legally every day. I just wanted everyone to perform at their best." "Where did you even get Adderall?" I asked, mind racing. "My little brother has ADHD," Dominic said quietly. "He's been prescribed it for 2 years. I've been taking it from his prescription for months, using it before big matches. It helped. It really helped. And I thought, if it helps me, why not share it with the team? Why not give everyone the same advantage?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "That's not an advantage. That's cheating. That's illegal. You stole medication from your brother and drugged our entire team without their knowledge." Dominic stepped closer, voice urgent. They knew they were taking something. I told them it was a supplement. Everyone who competed Friday took it willingly. Nobody was forced. I wanted to punch him. "You lied to them about what it was. That's the same as drugging them without consent. They trusted you. I trusted you." I stopped, a horrible realization hitting me. Did I take it? Dominic wouldn't meet my eyes again. "Friday morning, before weigh-ins, I gave you a pill. Told you it was a B vitamin complex for energy. You took it without even asking what was in it." The memory came flooding back. Dominic handing me a small white pill, saying it would help with the weight cut, give me energy for matches. I'd swallowed it without question because I trusted him completely. "You son of a bitch," I said, voice shaking with rage. "You drugged me. You drugged our entire team and made us cheaters. You made us test positive for banned substances. Do you understand what you've done? We lost the championship. Everyone's college scholarships are at risk. The Athletic Association could ban us from competing. Our records could be erased." Dominic's eyes were filling with tears. I know, and I'm sorry. I didn't think they'd test us. I didn't think anyone would find out. It was supposed to help us win, and nobody would ever know we'd taken anything. I took several deep breaths, trying to control my anger. What are you going to do when the investigation starts tomorrow? He shook his head. I don't know. Maybe they won't figure out it was me. Maybe if I just stay quiet, they'll think it was contaminated supplements or something. I couldn't believe his cowardice. You're going to let the entire team take the fall for what you did? Let 32 guys have their reputations destroyed while you hide? Dominic grabbed my shoulders. You can't tell anyone. Please, Nathan. We've been friends forever. You know me. You know I'm not a bad person. I just made a mistake. If they find out it was me, I'll get expelled. I'll lose my scholarship offers. I might face criminal charges for distributing prescription medication. My life will be over. I jerked away from him. What about everyone else's lives? What about the guys who trained for years for this championship? What about the seniors who won't get another chance? What about all our futures? Dominic's voice broke. I'm begging you, please don't tell. They're going to do an investigation, let them do it. Maybe they won't figure it out. Maybe this will just blow over. I stared at my best friend, the person I'd trusted more than anyone, and felt something break inside me. I need to think about this. I need to go. I grabbed my bag and walked out of the locker room, leaving Dominic standing there alone. The cold night air hit me as I pushed through the school doors. My phone was buzzing in my pocket. Dozens of texts from teammates, all asking the same questions. What happened? Did you know? What did we do? I ignored them all. I sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to process what I'd just learned. My best friend had drugged me, had drugged our entire team, and now he expected me to stay silent while everyone else suffered the consequences. The investigation would ruin people's lives. College scouts had been at that tournament. They'd seen us dominate. Now they'd know those performances were chemically enhanced. I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram. Our team's victory photos from Friday were everywhere. 32 guys celebrating, arms around each other, holding up the semi-final trophy. The caption read, "State Finals, here we come." The comments section was already filling up with angry messages now that word had leaked about the positive tests. People calling us cheaters, saying we should be banned from the sport, that our wins meant nothing. My phone rang. It was Jeremy Walsh, our team captain. I answered. Nathan, are you seeing this? People are destroying us online. They're saying we knew we were taking banned substances. They're calling us liars and cheaters. My college coach just called asking if the rumors are true. This is destroying our reputations. I listened to the panic in his voice and made a decision. Jeremy, I need to tell you something. But first, I need you to promise you won't do anything until we talk to the right people. There was a pause. What do you mean? Do you know something? I took a deep breath. I know who drugged the team. And we need to tell Coach Brennan before the investigation tomorrow. Can you meet me at school in an hour? Jeremy's voice hardened. Who was it? I closed my eyes. Just meet me. We'll tell Coach together. This needs to be handled the right way. An hour later, I was sitting in Coach Brennan's office with Jeremy. The coach looked exhausted, aged 10 years since this afternoon. Jeremy kept shooting me looks, trying to figure out what I knew. I'd asked him to come because he was the captain, the team leader. This affected him more than anyone. If we were going to come forward, we needed someone with authority to back us up. Coach Brennan leaned back in his chair. What do you need to tell me, Nathan? I looked at Jeremy, then at the coach. Dominic Carter drugged the team. He's been stealing Adderall from his younger brother's prescription. He gave pills to everyone who competed Friday, told them it was a legal supplement. The color drained from Coach Brennan's face. Jeremy jumped out of his chair. What? Dominic? That's impossible. He's one of our best guys. I explained everything Dominic had told me. The stealing, the lying, the distribution. How he'd been using it himself for months. How he'd convinced teammates to take it by misrepresenting what it was. When I finished, Coach Brennan sat forward and put his head in his hands. I need you to repeat that statement to the Athletic Association investigators tomorrow, every detail. Jeremy was pacing the office. I'm going to kill him. I'm going to actually kill him. Do you know what this means? I have 3 college offers. 3 schools recruiting me. This could destroy all of that. Coach Brennan stood up. We need to document this right now. I'm calling our athletic director. This is bigger than just the wrestling team now. This is a criminal matter. Over the next hour, 3 more people joined us in that office. The athletic director, Mrs. Chen. Wait, I need to avoid that name. The athletic director, Mrs. Reynolds. The school principal, Dr. Morrison. Wait, avoid that too. Dr. Blackwell. And a school security officer. I repeated my story 4 times. They asked me dozens of questions. How did I know this? Was I certain Dominic had said those exact words? Had I taken anything myself? Jeremy backed me up, confirmed that what I was saying matched up with things he'd noticed. Dominic had been the one passing out supplements before matches all season, had been weirdly insistent that everyone take them, had gotten defensive when people asked what was in them. By the time we finished, it was almost midnight. Dr. Blackwell looked at me with something between respect and pity. Nathan, you understand you just ended your friendship with Dominic. He's going to know you're the one who told us. I nodded. I know, but 32 people don't deserve to have their lives ruined for something they didn't know they were doing. Dominic made a choice. He has to face the high consequences. The next morning, I was sitting in first period English when the announcement came over the loudspeaker. Dominic Carter, please report to the principal's office immediately. I watched my classmates exchange glances. The rumors had spread overnight. Everyone knew something major was happening with the wrestling team. My phone buzzed with a text from Jeremy. They're talking to him now, AD and cops. I put my phone away and tried to focus on class, but it was impossible. I kept thinking about Dominic, about the moment he'd realize I'd turned him in, about how he'd feel, what he'd say. 20 minutes later, another announcement. The wrestling team is to report to the gymnasium immediately. Teachers, please excuse the following students. They read off 32 names, including mine. We filed into the gym to find the entire administration waiting for us. Dr. Blackwell stood at center court with Coach Brennan, Mrs. Reynolds, 2 people in suits who I didn't recognize, and 3 police officers. My stomach turned over. This was real. Dominic wasn't there. I scanned the gym, but he was the only team member missing. Dr. Blackwell spoke into a microphone, voice echoing through the space. As you all know, there was an incident at last Friday's tournament. We've been conducting an investigation and we have determined what happened. She paused, and you could have heard a pin drop. Dominic Carter has confessed to distributing Adderall to members of this team without disclosing what the medication was. He represented it as a legal supplement. You were all unknowing participants in his actions. The gym erupted. Guys shouting, swearing, some of them crying. Jeremy had to hold back 3 teammates who immediately started heading for the doors, presumably to go find Dominic. Dr. Blackwell raised her hand for silence. I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But you need to understand the situation you're all in. Yes, you tested positive for a banned substance. But the Athletic Association has agreed to review your cases individually since you were dosed without your knowledge or consent. We will be fighting to have your disqualifications overturned. One of the suited people stepped forward. She introduced herself as Melissa Crawford from the State Athletic Association. We take these matters extremely seriously. Based on the evidence gathered, we believe you were victims of deliberate drugging. However, the process to clear your names will take time. We need statements from each of you. Medical records, documentation of everything that happened. It could be weeks or months before we make a final determination. Jeremy raised his hand. What about our championship? What about the tournament? Ms. Crawford's expression was sympathetic but firm. The results from Friday's tournament stand as disqualifications for now. If we determine you were drugged without knowledge, we may reinstate your positions and allow you to compete in the finals. But that's not guaranteed. The damage has been done. Even if we clear you, the stain on your records may remain. I felt sick. Dominic had destroyed everything we'd worked for, and even with the truth coming out, we might never get it back. One of the police officers stepped forward. Dominic Carter has been arrested and charged with distribution of a controlled substance, 32 counts of administering harmful substance without consent, and endangering the welfare of minors. These are serious criminal charges. He's being processed now. The gym went silent. Arrested. Criminal charges. Dominic's life was over. Everything he'd been afraid of was happening, but he'd brought it on himself. Another teammate, Marcus, wait, avoid that name. Another teammate, Troy, stood up. What about Nathan? He took the same stuff we did. Why is he the one who figured this out? All eyes turned to me. I felt my face flush. Dr. Blackwell answered, Nathan came forward last night. With information. He's cooperating with the investigation like all of you should. But I could see suspicion in some of my teammates' eyes. After the assembly, I was walking to my locker when Troy caught up with me. How did you know it was Dominic? I stopped, turned to face him. He told me. Yesterday, after practice, he was panicking and told me everything. Troy studied my face. And you immediately went and ratted him out? The accusation in his voice was clear. He drugged us, Troy. He drugged all of us and lied about it. What was I supposed to do? Let everyone think we were all cheaters? Troy shook his head. He was your best friend. You've known him forever. And the second things got bad, you threw him under the bus. Other teammates were gathering around us now, listening. I felt defensive anger rising. I didn't throw him under the bus. He committed a crime. Multiple crimes. He destroyed our championship. He put everyone's future at risk. I told the truth. That's what you're supposed to do. Another voice joined in. Ryan, one of the sophomores. My brother's a lawyer. He said if we'd all stayed quiet, the Athletic Association might have just called it contaminated supplements and cleared us eventually. But now that there's a criminal investigation, this is going to drag on forever. You made it worse. I stared at them in disbelief. Are you seriously angry at me for exposing the person who drugged us? Jeremy pushed through the crowd. Shut up, all of you. Nathan did the right thing. Dominic deserves everything that's happening to him. He betrayed us. He's the enemy here, not Nathan. But I could see the division forming. Some guys nodded in agreement with Jeremy. Others looked at me with resentment. The team was splitting into factions. Those who thought I'd done the right thing, and those who thought I'd betrayed one of our own. Over the next few days, it got worse. Someone started a rumor that I'd known about Dominic's plan all along and only spoke up when we got caught to save myself. Another rumor claimed I was trying to get rid of Dominic because I was jealous of his wrestling success. Neither was true, but lies spread faster than truth. My phone blew up with hateful messages from people I'd considered friends. Lockers got vandalized with graffiti calling me a snitch and a traitor. Someone posted my phone number on social media, claiming I'd testified against my best friend for attention. I had to change my number after I received 40 death threats in one night. The worst part was Dominic's family. His mother showed up at my house 3 days after his arrest. She was crying, begging me to recant my statement, telling me I'd destroyed her son's life over a mistake, that he'd only been trying to help the team succeed. I stood in my doorway listening to her sob and felt terrible, but I didn't back down. Mrs. Carter, I'm sorry Dominic is going through this, but he drugged me. He drugged our entire team. He knew what he was doing was wrong, and he did it anyway. I didn't destroy his life. He destroyed it himself. She slapped me, right across the face, hard enough that my head snapped to the side. My mom was behind me and immediately got between us, threatening to call the police if Mrs. Carter didn't leave. Mrs. Carter left screaming that I was a liar and a terrible person, that Dominic had considered me a brother and I'd stabbed him in the back. I went to my room and sat on my bed, face still stinging. My mom came in and sat next to me. Are you okay? I nodded. I did the right thing. She put her arm around me. I know you did, but doing the right thing isn't always easy. Sometimes it costs you everything. She was right. The next few weeks were hell. The investigation dragged on. Athletic Association officials interviewed every team member multiple times. Medical professionals analyzed our blood test results. Lawyers got involved. The media picked up the story. Local news stations camped outside our school. Reporters tried to interview students, parents, coaches. The story went viral online. High school wrestling team drugged by teammate. I had to testify in 3 separate hearings. Once for the Athletic Association, once for the school board, and once for Dominic's preliminary criminal hearing. Each time I repeated the same story, what Dominic had told me, how he'd admitted to stealing his brother's medication, how he'd lied to the team about what he was giving them. Dominic's lawyer tried to paint me as a vindictive friend looking for revenge over some personal slight, claimed I'd made up the whole conversation to frame Dominic because I was jealous. It didn't work. Too many pieces of evidence corroborated my story. They found Dominic's fingerprints on pill bottles in the wrestling room, found text messages between him and other students discussing supplements, found records showing he'd been refilling his brother's prescription more frequently than medically necessary. The evidence was overwhelming. Dominic's lawyer eventually advised him to take a plea deal. The Athletic Association reached its decision 6 weeks after the initial incident. They determined that 31 members of the wrestling team had been dosed without informed consent and were victims rather than perpetrators. Those 31 wrestlers would have their disqualifications overturned and their records restored. They would be allowed to compete in a special makeup tournament to determine state championship seeding, but one wrestler was not included in that decision. Me. Because I'd testified that Dominic told me what he was giving me, and I'd swallowed it anyway without asking more questions, the association determined I'd had reasonable suspicion and should have investigated further. My disqualification stood. I was banned from competition for the remainder of the season. When Dr. Blackwell called me into her office to deliver this news, I sat in stunned silence. But I didn't know it was Adderall. He lied to me just like he lied to everyone else. Dr. Blackwell's face was sympathetic. I know, Nathan. And for what it's worth, I think this decision is unjust. But the Athletic Association's hands are tied. Their rules state that athletes have a responsibility to know what they're putting in their bodies. Because you testified that Dominic told you it was a supplement, they're claiming you should have asked what kind of supplement, asked to see ingredient lists, done due diligence. It's a technicality, but it's enough for them to maintain your disqualification. I felt tears burning behind my eyes. So because I told the truth about what happened, I'm being punished? If I'd lied and said I had no idea he'd given me anything, I'd be cleared? Dr. Blackwell nodded slowly. Probably, yes. I laughed bitterly. That's perfect. Everyone else gets to move on because I came forward, but I'm left holding the consequences. Jeremy was waiting outside the office when I came out. He took one look at my face and knew. They didn't clear you. I shook my head, not trusting myself to speak. He swore violently. That's garbage. You're the only reason any of us got cleared. You came forward when you didn't have to. You lost your best friend to tell the truth. And this is how they repay you? I slumped against the lockers. I'm done, Jeremy. I'm done wrestling. I'm done with this school. I'm done with all of it. Jeremy grabbed my shoulder. Don't let them break you. This isn't over. We can appeal. We can fight this. But I didn't have any fight left in me. I went home and told my parents what happened. My dad immediately started talking about lawyers and appeals and taking this to court. My mom just held me while I cried. I'd lost everything. My best friend, my team, my championship, my senior season. All because I'd tried to do the right thing. The makeup tournament happened 2 weeks later. I watched from the stands as my teammates competed for the state championship. It felt surreal, seeing them out there without me. Jeremy won his weight class. Troy got second. The team placed third overall, good enough to qualify for the state finals. Everyone celebrated except me. After the tournament, Jeremy found me in the parking lot. We missed you out there. I managed a weak smile. You guys did great. He hesitated, then pulled an envelope from his bag. The team took a vote. We want you to have this. I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter signed by all 31 cleared wrestlers. It thanked me for coming forward, acknowledged that I'd sacrificed my season to protect theirs, and stated that in their eyes, I was just as much a champion as any of them. At the bottom was a check for $3,000, the team's share of tournament winnings. We voted to give you an equal share, Jeremy said. You earned it even if you couldn't compete. I stared at the letter and the check, overwhelmed. Maybe I hadn't lost everything after all. Dominic's criminal case concluded 3 months later. He pleaded guilty to 28 counts of administering harmful substances without consent. The prosecution dropped some charges in exchange for the plea. He was sentenced to 2 years in juvenile detention, 5 years probation, and had to pay restitution to all the affected athletes for medical expenses and emotional distress. His wrestling career was over, His college scholarships were revoked. His name was permanently on the State Athletic Association's banned list. I didn't attend the sentencing. I couldn't face seeing him, hearing what he might say. But my mom went, said she wanted to understand what had happened to the boy who used to eat dinner at our house 3 times a week. She came home and told me Dominic had read a statement in court, had apologized to the team, to me specifically, had said he understood why I'd come forward and that he didn't blame me. He blamed himself. He'd been desperate to succeed, desperate to matter, and he'd made terrible choices. He knew he deserved the consequences. My mom said he'd cried through the whole statement. Part of me felt vindicated. Part of me felt sad. This was someone I'd loved, and he'd destroyed himself. The school year ended. I graduated without Dominic there. We'd planned since freshman year to walk across that stage together, throw our caps in the air side by side. Instead, I walked alone while he sat in a detention facility 40 miles away. College started in the fall. I'd gotten into a decent state school, but without wrestling scholarships, my family was struggling to afford it. The $3,000 from the team helped, but it wasn't enough. I ended up having to take out significant loans. Meanwhile, my former teammates who'd been cleared were thriving. Jeremy had gotten a full ride to a Division I school. Troy had 2 scholarship offers. Even the younger guys were getting recruited based on their performances at the makeup tournament. I tried not to be bitter about it, tried to remember that I'd done the right thing, but it was hard watching everyone else succeed while I struggled. The aftermath of speaking up followed me for years. At college, whenever I mentioned I'd wrestled in high school, someone would inevitably Google my name and find the articles about the scandal. I'd have to explain over and over that yes, I was that Nathan Everett. No, I didn't drug anyone. Yes, I was the one who reported it. And no, I don't regret it even though it cost me my senior season. Some people respected what I'd done. Others thought I was a snitch who'd betrayed his friend. I learned to stop talking about it. But Madison from the reference story transformed her trauma into advocacy. I tried to do something similar. I started speaking at high school athletic programs about performance-enhancing drugs, about the pressure athletes face, about making ethical choices even when they cost you. I told my story over and over to rooms full of teenagers, hoping maybe one of them would remember it when they faced their own moral choice. It didn't pay much, mostly travel expenses and occasional small honorariums, but it felt meaningful, like maybe something good could come from the disaster my senior year had been. 3 years after graduation, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line read, "I owe you an apology." It was from Dominic. He'd been released from juvenile detention and was living with his grandmother in another state, trying to rebuild his life. The email was long, rambling, full of apologies and explanations. He'd been in therapy, had been diagnosed with anxiety and depression, had been working with counselors to understand why he'd made the choices he'd made. He said he'd spent 2 years being angry at me, feeling betrayed, believing I'd destroyed his life. But therapy had helped him see that he'd destroyed his own life, that I'd just been the person who'd refused to let everyone else go down with him. He said he understood now why I'd come forward, that if our positions had been reversed, he hoped he would have had my courage. He said he didn't expect forgiveness, didn't expect me to respond, just wanted me to know that he was sorry, that he was trying to be better, that he hoped I was doing okay. I read the email 3 times, sat with it for a week before responding. When I finally wrote back, I kept it brief. "I appreciate the apology. I hope you're doing better. I'm not ready for friendship, but I don't wish you harm. Take care of yourself." He responded immediately. "That's more than I deserve. Thank you for everything, even when it hurt. You saved me from becoming someone worse." I never became close with Dominic again. Our friendship was a casualty of his choices and my response to them, but I didn't hate him anymore. He was just someone I used to know who'd made terrible mistakes and was trying to live with them. The wrestling team from my senior year stayed in touch. We had a group chat that was active for years, guys sharing their college experiences, their wrestling achievements, their lives moving forward. They never forgot that I'd sacrificed my season for theirs. When Jeremy got married 5 years after graduation, I was a groomsman. At the reception, he gave a speech thanking everyone who'd helped him get where he was. He mentioned his parents, his coaches, his wife, and then he mentioned me. Senior year, our team faced a crisis that could have destroyed all our futures, Jeremy said. Nathan Everett made a choice that cost him everything but saved the rest of us. He chose truth over loyalty, integrity over friendship. He lost his best friend, his senior season, and his reputation. But he gave 31 other guys a chance at their dreams. Nathan, you're the most ethical person I know. Thank you for having the courage we needed when we couldn't find it in ourselves. The entire wedding stood and applauded. I sat there feeling overwhelmed, vindicated, and sad all at once. Madison transformed her trauma into advocacy, becoming a voice for victims of privacy violations. I became a voice for athletes facing ethical dilemmas, speaking about the courage it takes to do right when everything in you wants to protect the people you love. It wasn't the wrestling career I'd planned, but it mattered. 7 years after the incident, the State Athletic Association changed its rules. They created new protocols for investigating doping cases, including provisions that protected whistleblowers from punishment. They established that athletes who come forward with information about doping should not face the same consequences as those who dope knowingly. They called it the Everett Protocol, named after me. The athletic director who'd helped investigate the original case called to tell me, "Nathan, I wanted you to know. Because of what happened to you, we've changed the system. Future athletes who do what you did won't be punished for their honesty. Your sacrifice meant something." I hung up and cried for the first time in years, not sad tears, something else. Relief, maybe. Vindication. The knowledge that my destroyed senior season had prevented the same thing from happening to someone else. I thought about Dominic, wherever he was. Thought about the 31 teammates who'd gotten to continue their wrestling careers. Thought about all the future athletes who would benefit from the Everett Protocol. Doing the right thing had cost me everything I'd worked for. My best friend, my championship, my senior season, my reputation. But it had protected people I cared about, changed a system that was broken, given meaning to the loss. Coach Brennan retired 5 years after the incident. I attended his retirement ceremony. He pulled me aside afterward. "Nathan, I've coached for 30 years. I've had state champions, Olympic hopefuls, athletes who went on to incredible careers. But you're the wrestler I'm most proud of, not because of any match you won, but because when it mattered most, you chose integrity. That's the real championship." Madison Fletcher became an advocate for privacy rights and cyber exploitation victims, turning her trauma into purpose. I became someone who spoke about ethical courage in sports, about choosing truth over comfort, about living with the consequences of doing right. We were both athletes whose defining moments came not from our athletic achievements, but from how we responded when those achievements were taken from us. Dominic served his time, went through therapy, tried to rebuild a life from the ashes of his choices. He never wrestled again. Last I heard, he was working in construction, had a girlfriend, was trying to move forward. I hoped he'd found peace with what he'd done and who he'd become. The check from my teammates, $3,000, eventually covered textbooks for 2 semesters. The letter they'd signed, thanking me for sacrificing my season to save theirs, still hung framed on my apartment wall. The Everett Protocol, the rule change that protected future whistleblowers, remained in place across the state athletic system. My senior wrestling season, the championship I'd worked toward for 4 years, stayed stripped from my record. But those losses had transformed into something bigger than individual achievement. 31 athletes got to finish their careers with integrity. Countless future athletes would be protected by the new protocols. Dominic faced consequences for his actions rather than dragging everyone down with him. Madison Fletcher showed that victims could survive their worst moments and transform trauma into advocacy. I showed that speaking up, even when it costs everything, was worth the price. And maybe that mattered more than any trophy ever could. If you enjoyed this, you'll definitely want to see the next ones too. So subscribe now and let me know your take in the comments.